Hey, welcome back. We're talking to Professor Salim Mansur. He's the author of a new book called The Delectable Lie, A Liberal Repudiation of Multiculturalism. Professor Mansur, tell me your thoughts about 9/11. It's the 10th anniversary of that horrendous day. You're a liberal professor who loves Western values, but you're also a Muslim immigrant from Pakistan. What are your thoughts on this day?
Let me just say one thing. Western values are universal value. The Japanese want them, the Indians want them, the Chinese want them. That's the struggle.
All humanity wants them.
All it was planted in the West, it grew in the West, it was nourished in the West. The problem is, will the West sustain and maintain its value, or will it be overrun?
Since 9/11, a lot of things have happened. Are we stronger or weaker in our values since 9/11?
I think we are weaker.
Why is that?
Because we are too accommodating. We are not confident of our own values. We are filled out with sort of a guilt complex of a history, of a past history, and we want to make amends. The liberals believe, that is the liberal left believe, that all the problems of the modern world emanates from them. It's sort of again a hubris to think that it is the Western world that has created the problems of the whole world, you know, that we are faced with. 9/11, Ezra, in my thinking, in my thoughts and reflection 10 years later, was the symptoms of a civilization negotiating its own demise. That was what terrorism was. No healthy man, no sane man, no healthy culture, no sane culture engages in such self-destructive act as the Arab Muslim world has done and continues to do. So this is a civilization that doesn't have, this is a culture that doesn't have a sense of how it is going to come out of its own vortex, of its own box, and reconcile itself with the world in the 21st century, in the third millennium.
Well, let's talk about aesthetics, and here's what I mean. You're brown, you have an accent, you're an immigrant, you're a Muslim. You can say things without being called racist, without being called anti-Muslim, Islamophobe, but if a white male were to say those things, would they not be denounced as a hater?
But that's precisely the problem that we are faced with, you know. The whole problem of political correctness, language police. It is not the content that matters. Look at the way the word discriminate has been hijacked. Discriminate was a perfect English word.
We discriminate to choose. Yeah, he had discriminating taste. It was a compliment.
Discriminating taste. Discrimination in what we read, in how we understand the world. And that word has been taken away to give it the idea that a person who discriminates is a racist, is a bigot.
Well, you know what, it's an interesting point. I look at gay rights, women's rights, sexual freedom, reproductive freedom, abortion on demand. All these things used to be liberal values, but the same liberal, secular humanists that would champion these things in the face of a white Catholic bishop are silent in the face of a brown Muslim imam. How come? Because they're afraid of being called
precisely
new colonialists or something?
And the question is not to be afraid.
Yeah.
You
know, easier said than done. Are you afraid ever?
Well, I mean, the question being what sort of a fear? There's always a fear that there are elements in our society who cannot engage in a rational discussion and will turn into violence. And that's a fear that's always around.
Do you ever feel, I mean, you're speaking out firmly for Western values against Islamic radicalism. Have you ever felt threatened?
I'm speaking out firmly for freedom, which is my value, which is the value I see within Islam that was denied by the Islamists. Right, going back historically to the very origins of Islam.
10 years later, in Canada and the United States, the Muslim population is much larger. In America, it's twice as large. In Canada, it's probably the same thing. How have these new Muslim immigrants adapted to the West? Are they generally freedom lovers fleeing tyranny, or are they generally people bringing illiberal ideas with them?
Here I will follow the media, Ezra, if you have the time. There is, again, in any population, no population is monolithic. They're segmented, there's differences. The media since 9/11, particularly since 9/11, has been focused upon those Muslims who are from the mosque, who wear the garment, the dress, the attire and the looks of the person from the mosque, whether it is male or female.
And how does that skew their opinions?
And the media brings them on, and they speak as if they are the one that represent all of Islam.
And do they not represent Islam?
They don't represent.
Who are the spokesmen we should go to? Who are the Muslims for freedom? I don't see enough. You're one of them.
Because you don't call enough of them. That's the discussion. Right now, say for instance, wherever you turn around, take the case of Pakistan, the second largest Muslim country in the world. the new year began with some very significant murder and killing. The governor of the largest province in Pakistan, Punjab, was assassinated, killed in daylight by his own bodyguard. There were several other killings. Now the people who killed and the people who was killed, in this case the governor was a modern man. He was working to reverse the anti-blasphemy laws in Pakistan.
Well,
and that's not, these are the people are not being discussed.
Let's just talk about Canada. You know, the 9/11 attacks were by foreigners, Saudis and others, who came to America to wreak their havoc. These days we see a different phenomenon. Born and bred Canadians of Muslim descent who are radical, even more radical than their parents sometimes. You know, I mean, Omar Khadr, born in Canada, some of the Toronto 18, born in Canada. What can we do to avoid another 9/11, this time not from Saudis, but from our own Canadians?
Well, what needs to be done is that we, again, I'm repeating myself, stand for our values and insist those who are going to be citizens of Canada, citizens of the United States, must respect the values, the political system. But if we have a situation, the contradiction, the paradox, like the mayor of the largest city in the United States, Mayor Bloomberg, becomes the champion of Ground Zero Mosque, then where are the Muslims who are opposed to that? There hasn't been a discussion internally among the Muslims that has taken place in the public. Where will they turn and voice their opinion? The Ground Zero Mosque is not supported by all the Muslims. I don't support it, and I'm not alone in this matter. But when you have the mayor of the city, when you have the president of the United States basically engaged in pushing the very arguments which the Islamists are pushing, Sharia and acceptance of Sharia, right here in our own province. This was the issue that was being pushed by the former Attorney General of Ontario, Marion Boyd, you know, that, yeah, we can be Sharia compliant. That's the whole agenda. Then you have the young people who will turn and support these arguments by basing it, again, on the multicultural right, which is identity politics, which is group identity. They become radical. It is now the Western imperialists, you know, the right-wingers, the conservatives who are opposed, and so we have to fight with them, you know. And this is the problem. The issue is not left and right when it comes to the defending, say, the Constitution of the United States. The issue is not left and right defending, you know, freedom of speech.
Professor Salim Mansur, we've got to end it there. I'm so grateful for your thoughts on this 10th anniversary of 9/11. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.